Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to this special episode of Lazio Lounge because Lazio just announced Maurizio Sarri as new Lazio manager. Last time I was so excited of something about Lazio was when Alasdair told me he didn't go to the derby. So this is to tell you how happy I am today. And guys, honestly, last time I was so excited for a signing for Lazio, it was when Lazio signed Juan Sebastian Veron. At that time, I thought, wow, we're going to win the Scudetto this year. So this tells you how long ago Lazio made a signing like this. Jerry Mancini, thanks for joining us. Let's start with you. How excited are you about Maurizio Sarri to Lazio?
Oh, very excited because this was the biggest decision in probably in Claudio Lotito's career since he's taken over the club. Let's just be honest, because if he goes after a guy like Italiano, it's a bad sign because Lazio's basically taking 3 steps back. But with Lotito signing Sarri, we are continuing the project and saying, okay, we are going to compete with the top 6 clubs in Serie A. And he's being a little ambitious here. Something that we haven't seen in who knows how long. Let's be honest here. Vedat Maurizio is the biggest thing that's happened to Lazio in a decade, and look how that turned out to be. So, you know what? Sarri is a bold move. It's a bold statement. I'll be the first to say that I do miss Inzaghi, but like you guys said on your pod, you have to move on. Only a coach has so much time with a club and can only take them so far. And this is a new chapter for Lazio moving forward.
Alasdair, the best signing of Lotito's era for the moment?
Well, we can only really make that call in 2 years' time, I guess. But I mean, in terms of talking about the biggest decision of Lotito's career, I have to completely disagree because the biggest decision and most damaging decision he's made was to sell Bastos last summer, and I will hear no other opinions about that. Imagine Bastos playing Sarri ball. It would have been beautiful.
Disaster.
So it's a moment of great regret in many ways for me today. No, I mean, I think what Jerry said there was absolutely spot on. You know, it's if it's going to be the end of an era like this is, with Inzaghi leaving and all the success he's accumulated, and you know, really raising the expectations and raising the bar of this club, and the last thing you want to happen once he moves on is for Lazio to kind of slip back down again, I guess, or lower those expectations. You have to keep that high. You have to rebuild momentum, and that was one of the first things I said once I was finally convinced it was going to happen today, was that's the thing I'm most happy about, really, is that bringing in a guy like this, it really brings in that wave of enthusiasm. I mean, all 3 of us are very enthusiastic, but the entire fan base has been just electrified by this. And it's really going to hopefully do the same to the players and just the club as a whole. I think it's exactly what Lazio needed.
Do you agree what Vitaly Klusko, I hope I pronounced it right, told us on Twitter? Should we say thank you to Simone Inzaghi? Because it looks to me that Lotito was so pissed off that said, okay, you treat me like this, then I'm going to sign Maurizio Sarri. That is probably a little bit above Inzaghi's Lazio standard. Alasdair, do you agree, or do you think it was something planned?
I don't know if it's so much a reaction to Inzaghi pissing him off as just the fact that, I mean, he said it in this statement that he's just brought out an hour or so ago, where he's basically said that this is a coach of the standing who will keep us at the levels that we've set in Italy and Europe. And it's you know, the part of the reason that I was so unsure, so unwilling to really comment on this all along is that I feel like we've been here before too many times and been burned at the end. But you have to you have to take your hat off to Lotito on this occasion and say he has forked out. It's the highest paid coach Lazio have ever had. And he's really, you know, these negotiations have, Sarri is a serious negotiator. He's, you know, a former banker. He knows his figures and he knows what he wants. And yeah, I think that you have to give a lot of credit to Lotito this time.
Jerry, do you agree with Alasdair, or do you think it's a reaction?
So the day after when Simone Inzaghi left Lazio, he signed with Inter. I joined the Italian Forza podcast with Nima and Carlo, and I gave them my take on Inzaghi and what I thought. And the first thing I thought was Italiano was going to come to Lazio because the budget made sense, kind of the transition. Everything he brought in was a kind of a Latito signing, we all know. And then I said, here's the other variable, and I agree with Vittorio. This is a vendetta now with Lotito. No, seriously, this is a vendetta. This is what if you really look, I said this that day, I said, if there's one thing to take away from Simone Inzaghi leaving, and apparently how he did it, I will never believe it until it comes out of his mouth that he had a shaked agreement, all that. I trust Inzaghi's word over Lotito's. That's all I'm going to say. History proves itself, but that's a whole different argument. But he's pissed off. He's pissed off because he never got the agreement that apparently he had with Simone Inzaghi. He was betrayed. So what happens now? He's all pissed off. He's going to start spending money. He gets the best manager available on the market, Maurizio Sarri. And he says, you know what? I'm gonna throw it to Inzaghi where it's gonna hurt him the most. He's gonna see that I'm buying players that he never got in 5 seasons. He's gonna see the project now grow for the next 2 seasons, and he's gonna try to beat Inter at every possible way. So, in a way, Simone Inzaghi helped Lazio by leaving, by making Lotito start thinking, okay, now I gotta start spending money. Now I gotta start winning. And that's just how I see it. And it's sad that it had to get to that point to see Lotito make bold moves. But whatever works, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that yesterday he mentioned talking about the stadium and Maurizio Sarri, he said, for me, the world is like a contract. If I said something, I keep it. And without mentioning Inzaghi, but, I think we all thought that he was talking about Simone Inzaghi. Before talking about tactics and players and so on, do you think Sarri is a better manager than Simone Inzaghi? It's an upgrade compared to Simone Inzaghi? Or do you think we are talking about manager of the same level? Because Sarri with Napoli, he did great things, and Napoli was fighting for the Scudetto. When Sarri left, Napoli was never able to go back to that level. With Chelsea, he won the Europa League. With Juventus, and probably we are talking about the worst Juventus of the last 10 years, he won the Scudetto. So can we say that Sarri is an upgrade compared to Simone Inzaghi, or do you think it's the same level of manager? I'll start with Jerry this time.
I think it's just a slight upgrade. Not a massive upgrade, but he brings the winning mentality. He understands what it takes to win a Scudetto. Even though it's with Juventus, it doesn't matter because Pirlo couldn't do it with the same team. He took on Chelsea where he arrived in the transfer market very late, wasn't able to buy the players he wanted. I think he brought Jorginho and Kepa, and that was it. And he took on a club that was only available, and he still was able to win the Europa League and go to the finals of the Carabao Cup. So he did really well with Empoli. He took him all the way up from Serie B to Serie A and was able to keep them up for 1 season. After 3 seasons, he joined to Napoli, but against some of the biggest clubs and a very modest budget at Empoli, he developed a good brand of football. And like you said just moments before, at Napoli, it was probably some of his greatest football, even though he didn't win. The sad part is that he probably should have won something with Napoli compared to what he was able to achieve with Juventus or Chelsea based on what he was able to develop with this squad for 3 seasons. I think the biggest takeaway here is that we need to be patient with Sarri, and we can't be reactionary like Chelsea fans were when Sarri was there. That when he was unbeaten, I think in the first 12 games, he didn't lose a game. And as soon as they lost 2-3, it was an explosion. Everybody wanted him out. Fire Sarri. Sarri's not good. As Lazio fans, we need to embrace the fact that there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. But this team needs to understand what his concepts are, what his tactics are, and it's going to take baby steps. I think it's an upgrade over Inzaghi overall, though.
I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind, is that I think you got the sense from both of those jobs at Juve and Chelsea that he wasn't really given the time to implement his methods. And let's not forget, even his first season at Napoli wasn't all that impressive. And it does take time. And the longer he was with that group of players, the better they got. And it kind of came to a head in that 17-18 season when they were just unbelievable. And to get 91 points and not win the league is stupid, really. Like, it's crazy they didn't win the league that year. But that was the fruit of patience and time and trust in his methods and trust in his in what he was asking for in terms of the players he was going to get as well. And so I think if Lazio are going to have any hope of recreating that, because it does give me a bit of confidence that the Lazio team now, I would say, are in a similar position to the Napoli team he picked up in 2015. If Lazio are going to have any chance of replicating the kind of success he had at Napoli, because I think that's a closer comparison to any we can make with Juve or Chelsea, we have to do the same. You're right. You can't lose patience when the football is stodgy or we're losing, it's stale possession or whatever it might be. All the worst parts of watching a Sarri team when they've not been great. I don't think we can. We know this will happen anyway. In October, there'll be a 1-1 draw with Bologna, and everyone will lose their minds. But I think it's really important that if we are to see the best of Sarri, that there is that patience, like you say, and in that case, that's when I think we do have a better coach, is when he has that time and he has his methods. But as a kind of instant fix coach, he's already proven that that's not necessarily what he's going to do.
One thing very important is finally Lazio should say goodbye to the 3-5-2 and switch to a 4-3-3. This is what Sarri wants. And as Jess Hubers asked us on Twitter, there's a lot of work to do, because you need to move from a 3-5-2 to a 4-3-3. Probably this is what Sarri asked. I think very important is going to be Auronzo. It looks like Sarri asked for an extra week there, because it's there where he's going to implant the system. It's going to be there where he's going to teach the team how to play Sarri ball. That it's completely different compared to Inzaghi football style. So there's going to be a lot of work to do, to answer to Jess. Auronzo is going to be fundamental, but I think Lazio need 3 or 4 signing. But overall, I believe these players can adapt to Sarri ball. Obviously, we need a couple of signing. I don't think Lulic is going to stay. Probably we need a right wing, because at the moment we don't have a solution. But I don't know. I'm too optimistic saying that Lazio's players at the moment are ready for Sarri ball and we just need 3-4 good signing, or it's completely wrong, Alasdair?
Well, yeah, when you say just that, that's quite a lot. I mean, obviously, Kamenovich is coming in, which is good, because that gives us an option at left back, and he is someone who's, by the signs of it, is versatile enough to step in the centre as well. But I think that absolutely bizarre note that appeared on the website the other night about Elsad Husay and Nikola Maksimovic suggests that they might be on the way, and I think that's good news to guys that Sarri already knows very well, who know how to play his style of football, and who are obviously free transfers. So I do hope that, and by all accounts, they have been working on this in the background while these negotiations are going on. It did have that kind of smell of Bielsa to it when we were hearing about Sarri demanding these players be ready for a run. So it was kind of the same thing all over again. But I think that it is gonna take investment, because we don't have fullbacks, we don't have wingers, and we lack, I think, still in the centre of the pitch too. And I'm not convinced that Luis Alberto is going to be the regista who's going to do the Jorginho role. So I think there is going to be, it's a lot. There was already a lot of work to do in the summer transfer window, but now that we're having to change system completely, I think, even more so.
Jerry, do you agree with Alasdair?
The fullbacks, yes. We desperately need fullbacks. Hey, maybe we see Bastos return and we can use him in some capacity.
Number
Second,
9.
I see the 4-3-1-2 being used more than anything for two reasons. You're gonna get the best out of Immobile. You don't want to put him up front with in the 4-3-3 at the moment. I think if anything, you're gonna want to transition slowly to the 4-3-3 in baby steps, and I think the 4-3-1-2 probably serves more right now. You use Correa as well. You can put him behind the two strikers, or you can play him up front. I see vice versa. You can use him there. You can use Luis Alberto behind the two strikers as well. So I agree that the biggest issue is not the center backs, but the right fullback and the left fullback. We need those areas. And you know what? I was saying this to a friend of mine who's in Napoli, who does Forza Napoli podcast, and I said the one guy I would keep is Radu. I know he's a center back, but I still think he can service as a left fullback as well for his experience, his versatility. I think he's someone who can play as a backup. I think he is a good backup option still, even though he's 34 years old. Still has the team to his heart. And I know that a lot of people will probably be against this, but you got to look at two things. We need starters, and we still need backup players as well who can play those odd games and still provide those limited minutes, and that's something that Radu will do. So, but I'm more concerned about the right side, if anything, because we don't have anything there right now. Patrick's probably out the door. He's no longer going to be with the club. And as for midfield, we still need a backup to Lucas Leiva, if anything. That's the biggest question. Escalante is never healthy. The guy down the stretch was just injury after injury, but I thought the start to the year was really good and very promising. So you guys are right. There's a lot of question marks. You're going to have to spend a lot of money. And another option is who comes back from loan. Are there any players that maybe are useful that maybe Sarri considers? Maybe Johnny plays as a winger, if that's a possibility, because we were complaining last year that Johnny couldn't play the 3-5-2 because he couldn't come back. He couldn't come forward. But I thought that his biggest strength was offensively. That's where he was most effective. On the defensive side, he was a big liability. So maybe this benefits in one player to look out for, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. But I think Luis Alberto will play in Jorginho position. I don't agree with Alasdair. I think that is one of the things that Sarri want to try. And I think Luis Alberto can play in that position because in the last couple of years, he has been really good in defending. So I think he has the quality to play there. Levan Vanishvili asking about Lazzari. Will he be with Lazio this year? I think he can play right back, honestly. And I think there's a chance that he can play right winger in the 4-3-3. I think there's an option for Lazzari. I don't think Lazio will sell him obviously, we know transfer market can be incredible. Maybe a big team comes and offers 20 million euros and he's gone. But I think Lazzari can play there. I think Sarri will try Luis Alberto in Jorginho position, and that's why Oronzo is really important because you have plenty of time to test there. I totally agree with Jerry about Johnny. I thought he could be an option. The only problem is Correa is left winger, so Johnny would be the sub of Correa if we don't sell Correa, obviously. There are other players like Andre Anderson. Will he come back? Will he have a chance? What about Denis Vavro? We all said that he's not fit for a 3-man defense, but for a 4-man defense, could he be an option there? Is he gone? I mean, we know, and Vavro said it often, that his problem was Simone Inzaghi. Without Simone Inzaghi, do you think these players, and let's not forget King, who did quite well with the Salernitana this year, do you think one of these players could be useful for Sarri ball? Jerry?
You read my mind. I actually was going to say Denis Vavro, and I didn't think about that one player. And I think that's the biggest benefactor here, because we spent a lot of money on him, and now everybody was saying that he's not good in a back three. You said it perfectly. In a back four, maybe that's what he needed. I don't know what he played was it a back four he played in La Liga? Do you guys know by any chance what formation they were using? But
I think he played in a three-man defense, but they varied a little bit. So
I think the back four suits him better.
yeah, definitely.
He'll have more support as well. I think you're right. That's one player you have to maybe incorporate and try to maximize his value if you want to sell him the year after. Again, these are players who said that they didn't like playing under Inzaghi. They didn't feel respected. They weren't being valued properly. Now, all of a sudden, you got a new manager, new slate. Maybe that benefits him as well. Motivation, even Vedat Murici, that's another player to look out for. Maybe he comes with a new mindset. Maybe Sarri gets the best out of him and uses him properly. Who knows? I know people are going to think I'm crazy that Murici is not good. I don't want to use any... I don't want to get too aggressive on the guy, but... You know what? If I was him, on a side note, if I was Murici and I heard someone call me a donkey, you use that as motivation next season and you try to prove people wrong. Like, that's the one guy who has to take all the criticism and just use it as motivation and has to go all strong now, because if it doesn't work with Sarri, then there's something wrong with the player. But even Keane's another one. That's a good shell too, where I thought he should have played last year.
Yeah,
a left wing back. Again, with Inzaghi, he became too stubborn to use other players that are available to him. I know that people are going to say they weren't Inzaghi players, and you can use that excuse to a certain point, but hopefully that's one thing I'm hoping from Sarri, is that he tries to be flexible and rotate a bit and use other kind of players into his system and see what he can get the best out of, because that was the biggest issue against Fiorentina, where we played Alberto, who wasn't well, and then we played Lazio, who was sick, and we can say that the transfer market was an issue, but I want Sarri to avoid that kind of disaster and use what's best available to him. So
I think for everyone, though, it's what it represents is just a completely new chapter and an opportunity to start again, really. And I think that's particularly evident because it's coming on the back of Inzaghi leaving. And like you say, Inzaghi's his trusted players. You know, his guys that he likes, his kind of senators who's really backs no matter what. And then you've got these guys who he's just going to completely ignore no matter what. And suddenly that completely changes. I think you're absolutely right. All these guys can play a part, but that's going to be what Alonso's for, probably, as much as anything else, is for Sarri to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff and actually work out who the hell these guys are and what they can offer. Because he's not going to have seen Dennis Vavro or Sofian Keane or Raul Moro. You know, he's not going to really know what these guys are capable of. It's easy enough with Alberto for him to start making plans, or Milinkovic, and start working out how to get the best of him in his system. But a lot of these players are going to be so unfamiliar to Sarri that he's going to need that time to work out if they're useful or not.
Yeah, and obviously I think that Sarri is going to get out the best from Luis Alberto and Milinkovic Savic, and it's going to be exciting to see that. Where is it? I know, Jerry, you replied already, but Korab Taki is asking, how many goals will Murici score under Maurizio Sarri? You said 20. I would be happy if he scored 12, but 20 wouldn't be bad, honestly. And obviously, if you finally have two good wingers like Johnny, who's a very good crosser, I mean, that could only help Murici. I still believe that he has talent. He's a different player from Ciro Immobile. So, give him a chance.
But I mean, have you seen Sarri's teams play? It's not get it out to the winger and throw it into the big man. That is just not how he works.
Well, he'll have to adapt to the situation, obviously. But I think, that could be a big chance for Murici. I don't think we're going to sell him, and I don't think he's going to be having a huge market, unfortunately, after what happened. So, I think it's going to be exciting. Do you think Milinkovic Savic is going to have a terrific season with Maurizio Sarri? Or do you think these players like Milinkovic or Luis Alberto will feel the absence of Simone Inzaghi? Alasdair?
I think one of the things that Inzaghi did best was his use of those two players and the way that he managed to make the most of their talents. I mean, he's responsible for pretty much transforming Alberto's entire career, and he's played a massive part in the development of Milinkovic Savic as well, because tactically he's known how to get the best use out of the ridiculous array of qualities that he has as a midfielder. It's going to be very interesting, I think, to see how he deploys these guys and what kind of roles they do play. Because for me, I'll come back to it again because we're not agreeing on this one. But I just don't think Alberto is going to be a regista in the Sarri mold, in the Jorginho mold, and I don't think it uses his talents in the best way either. Because I think Alberto is most dangerous when he's in that final third, when he's got space in front of him and he's got passageways that he can pass the ball into to try and set up Chiro's runs. I don't think he's best sitting in front of the back four dictating play as a metronome. I just don't think that's his best role. I think at the moment he's kind of expected to take that role because he's the closest thing we've got to a playmaker in this team. There's no one else. So it's either that Sarri goes and signs Jorginho again for the third time, which would be nice, or we're going to have to find an alternative. But I just think for me, I like the idea more of having someone who's more suited to that central linchpin role, and then Alberto and Milinkovic either side of them to push forward. That's the idea that I like more in my mind than using Alberto in that role.
That's why I still believe the 4-3-1-2 makes more sense for Alberto, for me personally. I don't know. Who knows what's gonna happen, but I think that Savic is gonna have a good season, and I also think that Alberto is gonna have a good season because these are two players that Sarri has already mentioned that he really likes and wants to use the most out of. And we all know that his teams all start from the midfield. That's the most fundamental part, is that if he doesn't have a good working midfield, he struggles to adapt and allow his football to be played. I thought at Chelsea, he did a really good job with Ruben Loftus-Cheek. His best season was under Sarri, where he had 10 goals. And after he left, Ruben Loftus-Cheek hasn't had a good season since. He was on loan last year to Fulham, and maybe him coming to Lazio is a sleeper pick signing because he knows how to play under Sarri. You see, Conte had a really good year. Conte was able to adjust his game and change his style of play because of Sarri. So there are factors here. I think it's more, does Savic and Alberto believe and buy into what Sarri is going to tell them to do? I think if the player's mindset is there and he can convince them to play what he wants, they'll be effective. But it has to be up to the player to accept the new role and the new system. I think that's the most important part.
About what you're telling, Jerry, I think that if Lazio would have signed Italiano, who I think is a good manager, hasn't got that much experience, but is a good manager, I thought it could happen that Luis Alberto Milinkovic Savic could ask to leave and have no motivation to stay at Lazio. But with Sarri, seeing all the incredible work Sarri did at Napoli, Juventus, Chelsea, I think they're really excited because I think Luis Alberto and Milinkovic Savic know they can take a step further. And I think, Inzaghi was a sort of father for Luis Alberto, but now with Sarri, he can really take a step forward and say, hey, Inzaghi helped me, but, I'm a much better player now, and I can prove it with another manager, a big, experienced manager, a manager who proved to make all the offensive plays better, right? Higuain scoring a lot of goals, etc. So I think they are excited. I think they are really excited. And this, going back to what Alasdair said, is something really important because you betrayed by Simone Inzaghi, and you could expect Italiano, Walter Mazzari, etc. Instead, you go and sign Sarri. I think every Lazio player at this moment is excited and looking forward to the season. And do you think that Lazio now with Sarri won't be fighting for the last spot of the Champions League, but maybe something more? Maybe something starting from the third place above? Because, Allegri's back. He's a great manager. Spalletti's back. But do we rate Spalletti or Mourinho or Pioli or Inzaghi better managers than Maurizio Sarri? Can Lazio this time with this signing really make a step forward and finally fight for something more than the fourth spot of the Champions League? Jerry?
I think it all comes down to what they do in the transfer market. That's going to be the biggest question. It's not what Maurizio Sarri can do. It's what is he given the players now that Inzaghi was never given. We have I think personally, if you take away just starting 11, we have the best starting 11. I personally think in Serie A. When we look at strikers, when we looked at wing backs, we look at our healthy back end and our midfield. There's no issues. I think that the 3-5-2 always worked perfect, but we never had that proper player to replace the next all of our starting 11. Maybe up front was the only option we had where if we took off Immobile or Correa, we had Caicedo, and that was a good option because he's always delivered for us. After that, who do we really depend on? We brought Pereira, we didn't bring him on. So that's another that's another player who fits into Sarri's system. Who knows? But it all comes down to the transfer market. We need to buy some players that we can bring off the bench. We need depth. We need options. And like Maksimovic, Hisai, those are starts. And the thing I see here is that if Sarri is willing to agree to join Lazio, I wouldn't be shocked if we didn't buy at least 4 players this summer. At least 4. Like, there has to be something in this contract that convinced Sarri that we are buying players. We don't know who it is. Apparently, we're buying all of Napoli. Like, I don't know, but ADL is not going to be that easy to negotiate with because we all know Lotito and ADL are both stubborn and they have their differences and all that. But like, to buy Politano is going to cost a lot of money. It's not going to cost 20 million. So at the end of the day, we're going to have to look through a lot of free transfers, maybe some swap deals. But I'm convinced that if we buy the players that we need for Sarri to allow him to play, top 3, I do believe in. Yes.
I was just going to throw out there, do you guys see any wild card kind of positional changes happening here? Because that's obviously his biggest success story of his career, really, was moving Dries Mertens in off the wing to being a number 9 and soon became Napoli's all-time top scorer. I know that's not the hugest positional sense, but it was a big one, positional change, but it was a big one at the time because he never played through the middle. But I don't know. I'm trying to think. Maybe Vedat Murici as a left winger, a la Mario Mandzukic style, at the back post, or I don't know. It's quite interesting to think if we've seen Johnny being tried out as a midfielder before, a central midfielder. It'd be quite interesting as a kind of side conversation here, I guess, to think of if he might do anything a little bit weird with the players he's got.
Maybe Andre Anderson, right back, right wing, maybe. I think he has the chance, the quality to do it. But Luis Alberto as Jorginho, I would say. That's the most obvious one. But Alasdair doesn't agree with me, so...
No!
I think Correa. I think Correa is the guy who's going to be not used as a striker and more as a midfielder or a winger, or he's going to be played out of position. I think he's the guy where we saw last year, how many times did he not finish his chances and he should have scored how many goals? So maybe it's better that he's suited as a winger or as a midfielder with his speed and his dribbling skills. Like, that's the one guy I can see as a Dries Mertens who gets played out of position and is beneficial. Like, a lot of people are saying Correa doesn't fit in the system. He doesn't fit. But what Alasdair says a good point. When Dries Mertens was played out of position as a number 9, I can see the same with Correa. Correa has a lot of talent and traits that fit to Sarri's system, and this is a player where maybe he sees him using different than what we all think he should be using in his formation. So that's the one guy I think basically who will not be a number 9 probably.
Alasdair, do you have something in mind?
Well, I gave you my wild card one, the Maurizio off the wing. Like Mandzukic at the World Cup in 2018. I mean, yeah, why not? Let's chuck him out there. The defenders won't see him coming. He'll always be up against a tiny right back at the back post. We get Lazio to bomb on from right back and throw crosses in. And, you know, I'm a tactical mastermind, I'm telling you. I've got it all worked out.
Before wrap it up,
Vittorio,
do you think that... Yep, go on.
This is what we're going to do. We're going to bring back Bastos, okay? We're going to make him the number 9. Hold on.
Yeah.
And we're going to make Vedat Murici our center back.
That could be an option. Before we wrap it up, do you think Raul Moro will have more chances now with Maurizio Sarri? Or do you think it's going to be just like last year? Jerry?
I haven't watched a lot of the Primavera because I don't get enough coverage, but I did watch the Coppa Italia final, and I'm just curious to see if he has the body size to compete at a higher level. I think that's the biggest question mark, and he seems kind of small and he can be pushed off very easily. He's got good dribbling skills, can score, we know that, but it all depends how he impresses Sarri and how he sees him when in training. So, and then preseason, we always complained about Inzaghi being stubborn to not trust the Primavera. Maybe it's not as good as we probably think these players are, but I do agree you still need to give these players chances because you never know. Maybe they play better at a higher level. Maybe it brings out another level from them, and they become too complacent, too laid back in the Primavera because they've been there too long and they haven't been able to play at a higher level now. So that's a possibility. I just want to know if his size is going to be an issue for him. But other than that, I think that he's a good player. Should be able to at least get some opportunities. And the last thing I'll say is that you'll never know what you have until you actually try it. So,
Alasdair?
Well, I think that the most obvious thing is that if Sarri plays 4-3-3, there's a natural role for Moro, and the main reason in my mind that he's not had any game time as much as anything else is that he's not only very young and, like Jerry says, very small, but he's also would have had to play out of position to play in Inzaghi's system. So now that we've got a coach who might play a 4-3-3 system with inverted wingers, that's where he's been playing for the Primavera. That's his natural role, and that means, therefore, he has a kind of, he has at least a place in the squad. There's a role there for him if he can impress Sarri. And, so it's up to him. It's like I said, with everyone else. New coach, new ideas, new time together now on. So he'll be there. So it's just up to him to convince Sarri that he's got a role to play.
Yeah, I agree. I think Raul Moro has a big chance in Alonso, and we have to see which national players will be available at Alonso because it depends how further they go in the competition, which can be a problem for Sarri. So, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and I think it's good to have this excitement after so many years of boring transfer market. So let's hope that, transfer market would be as Sarri asked, 4-3 top players to improve the team. And I think it's going to be an exciting season for Lazio. And I'm really looking forward for the derby. Mourinho on one side, Sarri on the other. It's going to be big fun. Again, thanks, Jerry, for joining us. Thanks, Alasdair. We'll be back, I think, next week, maybe to start talking about transfer market, hoping that Lazio start signing some players and maybe don't take as long as they did with Maurizio Sarri. Thank you, guys. Have a great night, and we're going to talk later. Bye.
Cheers.